Great. Welcome, good afternoon, and congratulations on making it to the last session of the Congress. My name is Barney Long. I'm with Rewild, which is the current host of the SMART partnership. And very pleased to welcome our final plenary speaker for this afternoon, Dr. Tara Stoinski. Tara is the President, CEO, and Chief Scientific Officer for the Dying Fossey Gorilla Fund, where she has worked for 23 years. Tara has 2 decades of studying gorillas, over 150 scientific papers, and is also an adjunct professor at Emory University. Today she's going to talk to us about the lessons learned from 5 decades of mountain gorilla conservation. So please have a warm welcome for Dr. Tara.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming, particularly as I know I'm sort of the last thing standing between everyone and the bar. So I appreciate you being here, and I want to thank the organizers of the conference very much for including me today. I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about the work that I have been involved in, and specifically the lessons that we can learn from one of the longest running conservation and research projects, and that is the conservation of mountain gorillas in Rwanda. So the mission of the Dying Fossey Gorilla Fund is that we work to save gorillas and their ecosystems through a scientifically based and people-centered approach. And the idea is that this is to create a healthier planet for all. I think it was Jonathan that mentioned this morning that those of us working in conservation are not just saving species, but we're actually saving the planet and saving humanity. And I really believe that, and I do believe that gorilla conservation in particular has a role to play in this, and I'll talk about that a little bit further in my presentation. To orient you very quickly to gorillas, there are 2 species and 4 subspecies of gorillas. So in West Africa, starting in the furthest area, in Nigeria, Cameroon, we have the Cross River gorilla. That is the smallest population with only roughly 300 individuals remaining. Then we have the Western lowland gorillas. They're by far the most robust. We estimate maybe 250 to 300,000, and obviously they also have the largest range. And then when you get to Eastern Africa, we have the Growers gorilla. They are found only in Eastern DRC. And then the mountain gorillas. And you can see the mountain gorilla habitat blown up a little bit, but it just gives you a sense of how very small the remaining mountain gorilla habitat is left. Western lowland gorillas are the only gorillas that you see in zoos. So the other 3 types of gorillas only have wild populations. And then the Dying Fossey Gorilla Fund works with the 2 subspecies that are highlighted in red. So we work with both the growers and the mountain gorilla, so both subspecies of eastern gorilla. These are the 2 areas where we work. So in Rwanda, we work in Volcanoes National Park. You can see it there on your left. We have been working in that area now for 57 years. And about 23 years ago, our organization looked to see kind of what was the next frontier for gorilla conservation, and at that point moved into Eastern DRC to work with Growers gorillas. Our 2 landscapes, we operate under the same 4 pillars, which I will tell you about in just a minute, but obviously on a very different scale. And the one thing I will say is that the mountain gorillas live in a national park, so they all have formal protection. The situation in Eastern Congo for Growers gorillas is quite different. And most of them live outside protected areas. And I'm sorry I don't have a pointer here, but you can see Kahuzi-Biega National Park to the south, Maiko National Park to the north. But most of the Growers gorillas live in that in-between area. So they live on community lands. And so the area that we're working with is called the Nkuba Conservation Area. It is an example of a community-managed conservation forest. It's about 2,400 square kilometers, so 15 times the size of the park that we work in Rwanda. And we manage that in concert with the local communities. We have a staff of roughly 360 individuals in Rwanda and DRC, which really are the front line of gorilla conservation. The vast majority of our teams are out in the forest every single day, acting as boots on the ground, complementing the work that are done by the national park authorities, particularly in Rwanda. And in Congo, all of the trackers working in that community forest are actually employees of ours. And they have been there through the Rwandan genocide, through 2 decades of civil conflict in eastern DRC through pandemics, they literally never leave. And I think that's a large part of why gorilla conservation in this area has been successful. Now, we operate, as I mentioned, under 4 strategic pillars that include the direct protection of gorillas that I mentioned, conducting the critical science that we need to make effective conservation decisions, working to train the next generation of conservationists, and then also collaborating with communities. And what I'd like to do now is take you to Rwanda and have our country director, Felix Ndagijimana, tell you a little bit more about how these programs operate. Sounds like the sound isn't working. There, thank you.
Danfoss Gorilla Fund International is dedicated to the conservation and protection of gorillas and their habitats in Africa. To be able to accomplish our mission, we have developed an integrated conservation model which has 4 pillars. The first one is daily protection. Daily protection is done through the presence of our staff in the park. So we have trackers who go to the park 365 days a year. Their work is basically to monitor the gorillas, to follow each and every gorilla groups that we are in charge of. Also, we have 2 dedicated anti-poaching teams who are in the forest also every day, removing snares and other threats to gorillas and other animals of the park. Second one is scientific research. We are the world's longest running research center. We have been studying mountain gorillas for over 50 years. Our research work doesn't focus only on the gorillas, but also biodiversity of the park. So we want to be able to understand the gorillas and their ecosystem. The information that comes out of the research that we do really informs conservation policies in this country. Pillar number 3 is training of future conservation leaders. We're able to reach over 400 students from higher learning institutions in Rwanda. The work that we do is basically to provide skills to young scientists that would really enable them to continue the work of the Danfoss Gorilla Fund. Our 4th pillar is helping communities. This is important because we know effective conservation requires support of local communities. We work closely with communities who live close to the gorilla habitat, and we support their education, health, and also provide alternatives, because some of these communities are affected by poverty and they depend on park resources. So we want to be able to provide alternatives so that they don't go in the park. It is such a great honor to be the first Rwandan director of Karisote Research Center, to follow in the footsteps of Danfoss and all these other great scientists, all these other great conservationists. But I'm not the only Rwandan who works at Karisote Research Center. In fact, 98% of all our staff are Rwandan.
Thank you. Now, I think one of the amazing things about mountain gorillas is that they are the only great ape on the planet besides humans that are increasing in number. And so this is a trajectory from the early days when Diane Fossey started and when she went there and saw that the population was declining, to the most recent census, which was done in 2016 in the Virunga area where we work, which showed that population to be about 600. There's another 400 in Bwindi National Park in Uganda. So what that means is that in total, there are only 1,000 mountain gorillas left on the planet. So while they are increasing in number, the success is very fragile. And unfortunately, the situation is not mirrored for the other types of gorillas. So Grauer's gorillas, the ones that I told you that live in eastern DRC, their population is estimated to have declined by as much as 60% in just the last few decades through work that's been done by WCS. And in fact, when we look at all 4 of the types of gorillas, you can see the arrow shows the trajectory of these populations. They are all declining with the exception of the mountain gorilla. And I think what's very interesting about that is despite the fact that these animals face significant threats. Number 1 being their small population size, so you're just starting off with a few number of animals that are actually split between 2 non-contiguous populations, as I mentioned. They have very small habitat across both locations. It's about 800 square kilometers total. And these two parks are surrounded by some of the highest rural human population densities in Africa. These people are dependent on the forest to meet their basic needs. And although there isn't direct poaching of gorillas, people will go into the forest to set snares for other animals, and so the gorillas can get caught in them. There is a significant risk of disease because human and gorillas are in such close proximity, and they share 98% of our DNA, and so are very susceptible to the same types of illnesses and respiratory viruses in particular that we are. And then regional instability, which has been in this area for some time. This is a photo that I think is very telling of the mountain gorilla habitat. This is taken from a helicopter, and you can see the park on one side and then the fields on the other side. So no buffer zone at all. People are going into the park. Gorillas and other wildlife are coming out of the park, which again exposes them to disease, but also human-wildlife conflict and other challenges. But I think, as a lot of people have said, you know, it's not just about getting the data, but what can we learn? And I think given that mountain gorillas are increasing in such a challenging landscape, it's a really nice opportunity to think about, well, what are some of the stories or what are some of the lessons that we can learn that maybe can apply in other regions as well? So I think number one is definitely that sustained protection is key to conservation success. And I think all of us working in this room likely know this, but I think it's a very important point to make. What's interesting about mountain gorillas is that we've had the opportunity to do kind of a natural experiment that shows that it actually takes a little bit more than just having national parks and having these animals in protected areas. Now, every single mountain gorilla left on the planet lives in a national park, so unlike many of the species that we work with. These parks are actually very well protected. They have 20 times the global average in terms of number of rangers that are on the ground doing daily protection activities. And they've had sustained protection over decades, so people have been working in them for decades. But some gorillas within the national parks also have an extra layer of protection in that they have people with them every single day. So whether it be our staff or the national park authorities, there are people that are checking on each individual gorilla. If a gorilla is sick, the vets are notified so they can come and see if an intervention needs to happen. If gorillas are missing, we go to check and see if they've been caught in a snare. So there's this extra layer of protection that some other families in the park do not get. And so about a decade ago, we did a study that showed that while the population overall was increasing, 100% of that increase was a result of these gorillas that had that extra layer of protection. You can see on this graph here, the black bars are the gorillas that have this extra protection. The white bars are the gorillas that don't have protection. So these are unhabituated gorillas living in the national park with all of these rangers, but not having that formal extra protection. And then the gray bars are the overall population. And you can see that 100% of the growth for about 3 decades was solely a result of these animals with extra protection. Those that were not having a daily presence with them were actually declining throughout this time. And the conclusion that we drew from this paper was really a startling view of the enormous amount of resources that may be needed to bring some species back from the brink of extinction. The second lesson is the incredible value of both long-term and diversified data. And there's lots of ways that I could demonstrate this, but I wanted to show it through a combination of data that we've been using recently. So I'm going to play this animation. Each of the dots represents a GPS point for a gorilla family. So when we're out there every day, none of the gorillas are tagged. We actually take a GPS. So we have 3 families here. You can see the 3 different colored dots, and that probably represents about 20 days worth of data. Oops. Oh, yeah, there it goes. So we're just going to watch the animation for a second. When you see all the gorillas run down to the front, that's actually bamboo shooting season. So all the gorillas come to the edge of the park where the bamboo is, eat the bamboo, and then move up. And as these groups grew due to the high level of protection, what you'll start to see is about 2006, they started to fission. And so over the next decade, we went from having 3 monitored groups in this area to having 12. And you can see the amount of overlap between these groups. So basically, the group density over time tripled. in this one small area of the park. And the gorillas can't move any further to the north because there are other families there, same with the south. And generally they don't move too much into the Congo border because there's a lot of snares and other things there. So when we combined these data with our just data on the general demography of the population, we saw this tripling in group density that I just mentioned. And interestingly, the individual density went down because the groups were able to spread out a little bit. But it was this idea that we had so many more social groups living in this confined area. And we combined that with hormone profiles of known gorillas. So these are individual gorillas that we are collecting hormone data on to show that when these groups come together and interact, we see up to an 8-fold increase in stress levels. So when you have so many more groups living in a small area and bumping into each other a lot more, you're also having these animals exposed to much higher levels of stress. And combined, we were able to show then that this drastically slowed the population growth rate. So we went from an annual growth rate of about 4% a year down to just over 1% a year. And what these combination of data sets have enabled is for now the Rwandan government to undertake an ambitious goal to actually increase the size of the park. Because much of this park was lost in the 1970s for agricultural conversion and conversion for pyrethrin as a natural insecticide. So using these data, the government was able to say, okay, this is a justification for actually providing more space for these individuals. Lesson 3 is that gorillas are not good indicators for the health of their ecosystems. Again, this comes from having a lot of long-term data. We worked with another 7 long-term field sites across the world, so some in Central and South America, as well as across Africa. And we gathered data from natural major climate oscillations, so things like the El Nino year that we're experiencing this year. And what we were able to show is when we looked at overall demographic patterns, that these major climate oscillations had very little effect on primate mortality. We did not see a big increase in primate mortality. And primate mortality rates were the #1 predictor of population growth. So what does that mean? Well, it means that primates are relatively buffered from climate change, which is a good thing for us, I think, for those of us working with primates. And just to give an example, Amboseli was one of the areas where data came from. And the Amboseli baboon mortality rate went from a baseline of roughly 15 up to 30% during one of their El Nino years. By comparison, the mortality rate for wildebeest was over 95%. So it just gives you a sense of how much these animals may be buffered. So it's great from that perspective that they have some resilience there, and it's likely because they are so much like us. They're smart, they have broad, flexible diets, they don't need one location to have their offspring or to find their mates. But what it means is that you can't just be studying gorillas, for example, to understand how healthy this very small mountainous ecosystem is. And so our research goes much beyond the gorillas to study the general biodiversity in the region, looking at really important indicator species that can help us understand the overall health of the ecosystem. So whether that be amphibians, pollinators, birds, and even plants. We do a lot of vegetation monitoring as well. But we have also seen that gorillas can be incredibly effective umbrella species for their ecosystems in general. The mountain gorillas share their habitat with a number of other large ungulates and large herbivores. And so these are data that we published last year where you can see gorillas are in the bottom corner and you can see that upward trajectory. But what you can see for 4 other species of large herbivores is that trajectory follows that pattern. Now, interestingly, it didn't really start to happen until the year 2000. So during the period during and after the Rwandan genocide, those populations were still declining, even though at that point the mountain gorillas were going up. But now we're seeing quite healthy populations of these ungulates within the park. Lesson number 5 is just the critical role that communities can play. And again, we've heard a lot about this at the conference. Our work focuses on reasons that people are still dependent on forest resources. So we do a lot of work around food security, livelihood development. We work on things like literacy training. This is a program we have in Eastern DRC because unfortunately we aren't able to hire a lot of women in the area where we work because of basically 100% illiteracy rate. So by providing literacy training, then we can bring more women into employment with us. And then we work a lot with school children. This is one of the nature clubs in the schools. We work with 25 schools around Volcanoes National Park. And these nature clubs, they have to have they do projects like this one. So they apply for money for us to do projects. And these projects have to have 3 levels of impact. It has to be good for their school, it has to be good for the environment, and it has to be good for their community. So they're doing a lot of tree plantings, and they've actually distributed more than 80,000 trees to their community. Many of them are indigenous trees that are helping with pollinators and soil erosion, but also trees that are helping with the issue of food security. And I think one of the really important areas is that these projects are done in collaboration both with local governments and with the communities. So it's very much a bottoms-up approach of communities telling us what they need and then us helping them implement it. And this quote always resonates really strongly with me, is one of the community members in Congo telling us that the most important thing we did was listen to them and saying to us, we really want our children to be able to continue on in school. And so paying their per diems was a big part of what we did. And as a result of that, right now our youth and adult education programs and our food security and livelihood programs reach about 30,000 people annually. And our motto, as a result, is helping people saving gorillas. Because again, we know for the gorillas to thrive, that people must thrive as well. But I think a really important point to make along this line is that when you look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals, there's 17 of them, and I think most people probably think of conservation organizations and the work that we're all doing as affecting, goal number 15, life on land. When in actuality, we are addressing a lot more than that, whether it be poverty alleviation, hunger, providing equitable job opportunities. And so again, as we're talking with the larger community about what conservation organizations are doing, I think mentioning the impact that we're having beyond wildlife conservation is really valuable. And this in particular, I think, is highlighted in our work in Congo. So we talked about these 2 different models. The national park model in Rwanda, where people are really excluded from the park and they're not supposed to go in, versus the community model in eastern Congo, where these forests are still available to the communities that live there. They can still go in and hunt. It's just done on a sustainable hunting calendar, and there are critical zones where they aren't allowed to hunt that are just for conservation. They can go in and take out medicinal plants, et cetera. And when you look at what it takes to do conservation in these regions, as I mentioned, Volcanoes National Park is very well protected. It's about 50 rangers per 100 square kilometers. But we've been able to completely eliminate the hunting of great apes in the Nkuba Conservation Area with a much lower density of rangers. We'd love for it to be higher, but this is where it is right now. But it's because the community is really invested and they recognize the benefit of having conservation happen in their backyard. Lesson number 6 is that we must invest in the conservation leaders of today and tomorrow. And again, we all know that. For conservation to be sustainable in the long term, we have to have the people that are doing the work on the ground now and in the future. But it also really is about equity in conservation and science, which is still a very extractive industry. We published a paper last year where we looked at 7 years worth of publications in ecological journals, so publications that were being done on African wildlife. And we found that only 6% of publications in what would be considered a top-tier ecological journal were actually first authored by Africans, and less than 66% of them did not have any African co-authors at all. So this is a real issue, I think, within our field. And it's one of the reasons that 2 years ago, we took kind of our old research facility that was in a office building. It had one lab, it had one classroom, and we built a state-of-the-art research and education center up near the edge of the park, so back near where we used to work when Diane Fossey was there. We're very proud of this facility. I don't have a photo, unfortunately, but we are very proud that the SMART partnership actually chose to host a training here. And we bring hundreds of early career African scientists onto the campus every year. We planted 250,000 plants to recreate the forest environment so that we don't have to just take them into the forest for them to learn how to monitor biodiversity, but they can be doing it on site there. So I don't imagine that anything that I said to this group today was particularly surprising. I think we all know the approach that needs to be taken for conservation. But given the state of conservation, I think it is valuable for us to be able to show success stories and show the amount of investment long-term and on a day-to-day basis that it takes for conservation to work. And I think it's also very important for our funders, who oftentimes want to see what is the new shiny thing you're going to do, but really what we need to be doing is kind of the day in, day out conservation work that we know works over time. And this is particularly important for great apes because the estimates right now that scientists make are that within the next 2 decades, we are poised to lose 50% of the remaining great apes. And these are all species that are at the endangered or in critically endangered level. So already very much at risk and are disappearing very quickly. And that means that we need to use all of the tools in our toolbox to ensure that these animals have a future. And that, for us, is where SMART has come in. So how does SMART help us do our work? Well, we, over the past few years, have deployed SMART. We're using it now in our gorilla program. So you can see one of our dashboards on the right here. We're collecting our demographic data, our patrol data. We record all of our illegal activities that we see. And then special events, like if we run into a lone silverback who left our groups, or if there's a veterinary intervention that happens, all of this gets recorded and can easily be transmitted through the organization. Hopefully many of you might have seen my colleague Dr. Deo's talk this morning. We recently converted all of our biodiversity monitoring, we've moved our biodiversity monitoring from paper and pencil, it was all paper and pencil, to SMART through the survey application. We're not 100% there yet, but we're using it to do monitoring on all this long-term monitoring that we're doing on various species. The benefits for us is, number one, just the automatic upload means that we are not losing data like we had been before. The data are available much more quickly for us to use in real time. Huge improvements in data quality and the time spent doing data entry. And what that has meant, particularly for our biodiversity program, is that we're actually more effective in the field and we can collect more data than we did when we were still using manual methods. And so we're hoping to continue to expand this work. We'd love to fully integrate our biodiversity monitoring program into SMART. We'd love to strengthen the work that we're doing, strengthen SMART within our Congo program, where we've not made as much progress as we have in Rwanda. One of the things that we would be interested in doing also is thinking about how do we integrate SMART training into the work that we're doing with these early career African conservationists. Particularly, we support students to come do their senior thesis with us, and they have a relatively short amount of time to collect data. So if they can be collecting that extremely effectively and showing it to their supervisors to make sure the data that they're collecting are good, it's meeting the mark, they leave then not only with a great data set, but also with the skill of how to use SMART in the future when they move on to their next job opportunity. And then we're thinking about ways to include our fundraising team in all of our infographics, because they pull a lot of these data when they're conversing with donors or writing grants to talk about how many patrols we're doing, what is the snare trends we're seeing, et cetera. And then things I think that our team has talked about in some of the focus groups here is we'd love to think about some of these integration opportunities that it's been great to hear about here with the Internet of Conservation coming online. So integrating with other programs like ArcGIS, and then also how we can take our long-term data and pull it in, because we obviously only have data for a couple years in there, so we'd love to be able to get our longer-term data in there. And I'd really like to thank the North Carolina Zoo and Rich Burgle, because Rich has facilitated a lot of this training for our staff, and so the investment that's been made so that we can move to this platform has really been transformational for our organization. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. All right, I know it's close to bar time. Any questions? Will not take offense if there are not. No, maybe one in the back? Is there a microphone?
Hello. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
There was no LED, so it's not on. Oh, now.
It's working. I can hear you.
It's working.
Yeah,
okay.
it is.
Very good. No, thank you. Very good presentation. And you can, in fact, feel the passion.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's draining to the heart. Mine is referring to the population dynamics of your 4 gorilla species. where you have a declining trend in 3 of the 4 species because of the challenges that you have alluded to in terms of whether it's habitat fragmentation, land use conflicts, and inadequate buffer zones between the habitats where they are dwelling and your communities adjacent to that. Is there ever hope for reversing the trajectory of these populations that are declining, or the species and their populations declining, including, their meta populations wherever they are?
So thank you. Is the question, do I think there's hope for these populations that are declining? Or?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. I do think there's hope. I think, when Diane Fossey went to start studying the mountain gorillas, she thought that they would be extinct by the year 2000. And as I mentioned, instead, they're the only gorilla population that's increasing. So that was a dramatic reversal. And so that, I think, gives us a lot of hope. And even what we see in eastern DRC, where the Growers gorillas are really considered the most at risk because of that really steep decline, in the area where we've been working for the last 12 years, we've completely ended the poaching of gorillas. And so I think when resources are brought to bear, when economic opportunities are brought, employment, communities are engaged, that we can have a positive result. And I think similar things have been seen in Cross River gorillas and also in Western lowlands. But it is a massive scale of a challenge that we're dealing with. But great question. No others? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. It's fantastic to end on a story of recovery and hope, and great to see that SMART is helping you on your journey. Before I start with a brief wrap-up of the Congress, I want to hand it over to Drew for one of the most important announcements of the week, the winner of the photo contest.
Yes. Also, someone left their glasses in Omatako 4. We'll hold on to it and I guess come up to the registration desk and you can get them back. So just before the session, the plenary started, there's been a lot of votes, but there's been considerably more in the last 30 minutes. So it seems like maybe there's been some campaigning done. But I just want to, just across the board, congratulate Kelvin Mooley for definitely dominating the conference app across the board. So a round of applause. I think Kelvin started posting before we realized that we had actually made the app public. To announce this, I actually realized I probably should have considered putting these up on a screen, but either way, the winner of the photo contest is Kelvin. It is, I believe, a photo of him petting a cheetah or a sand cat. So we have a hat for you here. I will hand it to you shortly. And then I just wanted to congratulate the second place finisher who's also Kelvin. By 100%. But then we've decided to go down to the third one, and that is Arai Belgabuyeva. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but find me at the end of the session, and I will have a hat for you as well. And although we didn't announce it, I just want to congratulate the few people that were active on the leaderboard generally. That's just contributing to things throughout the throughout the conference. So again, Kelvin, by far. And then our very own Tony Lynham. So wherever Tony is, thank you. You don't get a hat because you've had plenty. But then we have a hat for Ben Talley from Liberia. So congratulations. And again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing this, Tukla Mang. Yes? Okay, great. So congratulations. Just find me after we close and we have hats for you. So thank you to everybody who did stuff on the app. We were happy to see there was so much activity. So that's it.
Great, thank you very much. And congratulations to all of those winners. If I could, excellent. Great, so it is up to me to close the ceremonies. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to everybody who was able to come and present, putting all of their energy and time into it. Really appreciate it. You're going to see some of these slides you've seen before, but I just want to give a quick summary of the 3 days that we've had whilst here. This is the first time we have done a Global SMART Congress, and we are really excited to be able to pull this off and have you all join us. We've been really amazed by the enthusiasm from all corners of the world. 52 countries able to make it just shows the reach of the community that we have around SMART. And I think that's one of the key things that we wanted to build through the Congress is that sense of community. You might be working in some remote corner of the world, but you really are part of a global community working together, co-creating a solution which is SMART. So thank you all for your inputs and time. We started the Congress with an overview of SMART. You all use it, so you all know it. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but I think it's just really important to think about why SMART and why we are so invested in it as the SMART Partnership, but also as the SMART community. The fact that it's easy to use, it's built from your requests, so it's serving your needs, the fact that it's free, easy to use, etc. We've also talked quite extensively across the few days about the SMART approach. This is not a technology solution. This is a holistic solution that has a technology component to it. But there's just as important as the technology is the capacity building component to all of the work that we do, all of the training, all of the manuals, etc. But also you as a community are the third critical pillar of the SMART approach. Without the community telling us what you want, without the community supporting each other on the community forum, etc., we would not be able to scale, we would not create a tool that is exactly what you need, and we would be nowhere near as strong as we are. So really the SMART approach is about the community and all of you. The Congress had these three kind of high-level objectives. We really wanted to make sure everyone knew the diversity of applications for SMART. We wanted to use it to do some level of training and capacity building, although we don't have a 3-day training specifically, but introduce you to the capacities of SMART, and if you want to follow up with those capacities, how you get access to training further on. And also demonstrate how SMART fits into this broader environment of tech for conservation. So just to summarize how we've done with this, the applied case uses for SMART. It was an amazing array throughout all the little side sessions. Not all of you would have seen these because there were so many concurrent sessions, but SMART is being used around law enforcement, which was its original use. But now these days, people are using it for intelligence, they're using it for ecological monitoring, human-wildlife conflict. People are really delving into the data and analytics. Also, not just the technology itself, how it's being used. It's being used in the marine realm. It's being used in indigenous lands, as well as large landscapes and at national level implementations. It's also starting to get into the adaptive management cycle around MET. So really, it's being used in a huge variety of ways by all of you. And we as a partnership have been so honored to be able to learn from everything you're doing and how you've taken this tool and adapting it to your needs. It's certainly highly educational for us. I might have underestimated this. I went through the app in as much detail as I could. I could find examples that you have presented on from 27 countries across every single continent, pretty much. So really amazing to see that global community come together. Again, apologies if I missed your country out here. That second objective was about training and capacity building. And this has been a really interesting topic because, yes, we have done specific trainings and in-depth conversations around some of the functionality of SMART as a tool, such as mobile collection, the profiles, the incident analyses, etc. But we've also started to think about trainings of things that you can use SMART for, such as problem-oriented policing and crime scripting. We've also had some really good conversations about how training and capacity building should occur. So that's introduced people to things like the SMART competencies, which allow you to develop training courses to deliver on competencies for your teams in the places that you are working on. We've also talked about the online training platform that is about to come online and the management manual, which is also soon to be launched. And so there's new training materials coming online, and hopefully you'll be able to see those and use those new training opportunities within your own sites and countries. We've also started to dip our toes in the water around how SMART can be used within the policy agenda. And that's, I think, a really important part of the next stage of SMART is taking this data and using it for influencing policy. The third objective was about conservation technology and how SMART fits into that. And we really wanted to think through how we use SMART to scale that innovation around conservation technology. So some of the key things we've talked about, obviously the SMART-EarthRanger integration, which is going to be key as we move forward in the much more connected environments. We've heard lots about this Internet of Conservation and how SMART can be used to link into other technologies, this hub to bring data in from multiple places, multiple sensors, and use it as a hub for analysis and adaptive management. So those are the three key objectives that we wanted to get at, and I think, as you can see, there's been a lot of depth and wealth around that. But we really also wanted to use this opportunity to talk to you, from the SMART Partnership directly to you as a community. As I've said, and as everyone has said throughout the week, SMART is driven by you. The more we hear from you, the more SMART will adapt to your needs. And so we held a series of focus group sessions to get your input on how you want us to do better for you. We had all of these focus group sessions on analysis and reporting, capacity building, SMART mobile, SMART in the tech community, the technical documentation, the management manual, and also how we're going to work with you on regional empowerment for training and capacity building. So we've now got a whole set of recommendations and ideas from you. The next 3-4 days, we're actually going to be staying in Namibia with a steering committee meeting to take all of that feedback, analyze it, think about it, and actionalize that for the next year or two. So you are really driving our program of work and our fundraising so we can support you. We've also really thought about how we can work with you on user feedback. And we really want to understand how we can engage you more deeply in the future. We also want to figure out how we can work with you much more closely as a community. And so, because we are responding to your needs, the question always comes in, well, how do you get in touch with us? How do you engage with us as a SMART partnership and as a broader community? So these are some things that you can do as individuals in your site right now. The online training platform is live. Please go in there and use it for your own sites. Promote this training platform with your colleagues. We want to make sure there's trainings happening, not just delivered by us, but internally. We have the resource library. If you have any resources that you would like to post for the entire community, please do. Doesn't matter what language it is in. We want that resource library to be available to everybody. So if you translate any of our manuals or PowerPoint presentations or trainings or anything, please do share them with us so we can post them for others to have access to. You've heard in the capacity building sessions that we run regular webinars. Please do attend those. Promote them within your agency, within your NGO, within your country, so more people hear about them who might not be as well connected to us as you are. And critically, we send out an annual survey to find out what you are thinking and what you want improved. We really do react to that. Our entire annual work plans are based on those surveys, so please do fill them out. Please do send them to all of your colleagues. We really want your input on how we should further take SMART as we develop it. There's also ways you can engage in a little bit more detail. Some of these you might need your boss's permission to engage in. The community forum, I'm hoping you're all on that. So we heard about it earlier today. It's a very active community forum. This is where you get peer-to-peer networking and lessons learned. If you don't know how to do something or you've hit a problem, you can post a question on there and somebody else in the forum will answer it. So if you're having problems, use it. If you're not having problems, but you think you can solve other people's problems, please go on there and answer questions. It is supposed to be a peer-to-peer networking mechanism. We've heard a few times, whenever we create a new piece of functionality within the software, we need it to be tested in a real-world environment. So if you're interested and willing to spend some time testing a new piece of software which is not publicly launched, but you would like to test it in your site, please let us know. We are always open to finding new people willing to test. We're also starting this concept of demonstration sites to look at the data behind SMART, what it's generating, and the impact of SMART. If you're interested in your site becoming a demonstration site and being part of a global study, please let us know. We're always happy to bring you into those. And then we've got these councils within the SMART partnership. One looks at the technology, what is good, what needs strengthening, what are the new functionalities that we need to bring in. And the other is the capacity building, how we go about doing capacity, developing the manuals, et cetera, et cetera. We're always looking for new people to come in and add energy to these councils and have new ideas and new hands on deck. So please, if you're interested in really engaging and developing the actual body of work, please let us know. And then we've heard a little bit about this idea of regional or national focal points. This is still in development, but the idea is to have a network of people out there across the world that know SMART, know the partnership, and can be a focal point for anyone in that country or region that wants to know a little bit more, whether it's they have a problem with the software, or they want to understand where they can get some training, or they want to get in touch with the partnership. Please do reach out if that is of interest to you. If you want to reach out to us, this is how you do it. Obviously, if you know anyone in the steering committee, please feel free to reach out to us individually. If not, this is your go-to email address. It is on the website, so we're pretty easy to find. This is manned constantly. And the final thing you can do is to fill out this survey. About half an hour ago, you probably were all pinged through the app to fill out the survey. You can find it on the home page of the app, or you can just use this QR code now. Please do try and fill this out today, now if you want, preferably before you all go drink lots of cocktails and forget about it. Please do it before you get on your planes home. It would be really grateful. We're going to learn a lot from what you are telling us about how it went this past week, so please do fill this out. I'm also left with the lovely task of final logistics. This is the buses to the airport in the next couple of days. Please make sure you know which one you're on. If you do not know which one you're on, please go to outside at the reception here. They will let you know. And please confirm with them, if you haven't already, which bus you are on so that they know they have the space for each one of these times. Also, before you leave the hotel, if you had any additional expenses, if you stayed additional nights, the Congress is covering between the 10th and tomorrow. If you're staying any additional time, if you did laundry, if you use the minibar, please do clear out your balance with the hotel before you leave. The final thing for me to say then is a few thank yous. Obviously, we're absolutely indebted to our co-hosts, the government of Namibia. We really, really do appreciate your partnership. We have to thank our sponsors for making this happen and bringing you all here and putting you up. The conference link is the company that has been helping us with all of the logistics, all of the audio, all of the presentations. They've been absolutely fantastic, and we thank all of them. And finally, two people that have pulled this whole thing together when none of us thought they could. We are absolutely indebted to Drew and Natalia. So Drew and Natalia, could you please stand up? Thank you very much. With that, we will see you all at 6 o'clock in the usual place for dinner and drinks and some traditional dancing, I believe. And with that, we will leave you by just saying that we hope to see you all again at the next Smart Global Congress, wherever and whenever that will be. Thank you very much, everybody. Safe trips home.